All right, this new moon is like a plot twist breakthrough kind of situation. So if you've been stuck in a funk, this new moon could really ignite a fire in your heart and help you open up to receiving some kind of divine intervention or something unexpected or spontaneous, maybe shocking or surprising or exciting that could help you break out of your old restrictions, maybe your old ways of thinking, maybe your old fears and break out of that into a entirely new way of showing up in the world, maybe a new way of shining your light, expressing yourself, being seen, opening yourself up to a whole new horizon, a broader horizon that is exciting and aligned with your heart's desires. All right, so let's get into this new moon. Okay, so this is a new moon in Leo happening on August 4th, 2024. It's going to be at 12 degrees and 33 minutes in Leo. So that's around 4:13 a.m. Pacific time. But before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about myself. If you have not met me before, welcome to Realization Hub. I teach sensitive and awakened souls how to be in command of their energy, develop their intuition, and navigate their energetic and physical world like a boss. So if you are sensitive to energy, if you're naturally intuitive, and you need to learn how all of that works, you have found the right place. I do offer personal sessions, group sessions, and online classes. I actually have a group energy healing coming up. I offer them every month, and you can sign up to show up live, or if you can't show up live, you can receive the recording. But August, I'm doing a healing topic on being seen. I think it's very Leo. Um, our ability to shine our light, be seen, our ability to see ourselves, our gifts, our talents, what makes us special, what makes us unique, what makes us, um, important in the world, and being able to do an energy healing around that where we can release any energy dynamics that would limit your ability to see yourself or be seen by others. So, if that's you, consider signing up. I'll leave some more information about my offerings in the description box below. But let's jump into that not full moon, the new moon in Leo. All right. So I first want to ground into the energies of Leo because it's a new moon in Leo. So that's kind of the energy we're really working with. Now, Leo is a fixed energy, which means that it's stable. It's kind of maintaining something that has already been initiated. Leo is also a fire sign, which means that it's very action oriented. It's got that energy of our will. It allows us to put in action that creates kind of physical momentum in our lives. And oftentimes with fire, you're going to find motivation and enthusiasm and passion, and just more energized and vital in general. And Leo is a masculine sign as well, which again is more of that action oriented, our ability to be more action oriented, but also take that action outside in our outer world. Leo is also ruled by the heart, it's ruled by the lion. There is that tone in Leo that's all about leadership, authority. Um, it is ruled by the sun, which can represent that father-like energy, consciousness, vitality, life force energy, our purpose. And generally, Leo is a sign that allows us to really be creative, be very open-hearted and generous, be playful, connect with our inner child, have courage, be seen, and kind of that showmanship of like the drama and just like things being really extravagant and over the top in some ways. One of the spiritual gifts that I like to mention about Leo is that ability to shine our light. We're all unique. We're all unique. We're all special. We all have our own personal gifts that we have to offer the world. But to make a difference, to be seen, we actually have to allow it to shine and emanate from us. And Leo can really help us do that. That energy of Leo can really help us embody that ability to shine. The beautiful thing about shining our light is that we're really just shining our consciousness. We're allowing ourselves to radiate our consciousness from within us, outside of us. And energy responds to consciousness. And so when we're shining our light, that's when we actually open up new opportunities. That's when things come together for us. That's when our energy rebalances naturally on its own. A lot happens when we shine our light. Our energy starts to communicate and rebalance and move and create and, do things beyond what our minds can comprehend. And so it's actually an incredible gift that we can give ourselves that no matter what we're going through, whether it's dark and challenging or shocking or an adventure or we feel safe or wherever we're at, we're dealing with the unknown in some way, we're moving through our fears. It's a really good quality to have that courage to just stay open and shine your light regardless of the situation. So this is a really good season to do that. I mean, I can already sense into August, and I can kind of sense the adventure that's happening in August. Like it could be, like exciting. There could be lots of twists and turns. There could be things that surprise us. There can be some things happening that we don't expect. There could be some disruption or chaos. And what do we do, when things are completely outside of our control, where it might be challenging you, triggering you, freaking you out, or maybe it's just like really entertaining, or maybe it's just a lot of drama. Whatever it is, it's a good time to stay open and shine your light. Just kind of that feeling of like all is well, just like that feeling of like, I trust the experience. I'm safe. I'm opening up and I'm shining, and I'm going to allow something bigger than me, beyond my comprehension to take care of this for me. I'm going to allow myself to create without agenda, and watch how amazing or inspiring or surprising that can be for me. So I've listed some of the interesting major aspects going on. There's going to be a conjunction here with um, Jupiter and Mars, and that's going to be making a sextile to this new moon. So that's kind of like more the direct conversation that's happening in this new moon. But then we've got this thing going on with Venus. Venus is going to be squaring Uranus. It's also got a couple of inconjunctions going on with Neptune and Pluto. And, it's also going to be in a square with Sedna, so that's interesting to me. Um, Also, Venus is going to be at the 29th degree. And it's going to be moving into Virgo shortly after this new moon. And at the same time, we've got Mercury going retrograde, like as this new moon on the day of the new moon, And so we've got a lot of different conversations going on that I've listed here, and there's obviously more, but I'll be going over some of these dynamics with you. Okay, I want to talk about kind of the main conversation happening here, or the more direct, kind of obvious conversation, I should say. But, the new moon here in Leo, and then we have this sextile that's happening between Jupiter and Mars over here. And that's going to be in Gemini. So Mars and Jupiter will be in Gemini. They're going to be in this conjunction, which means those energies are going to be blending together, and they're making a sextile to the new moon, which provides a supportive kind of opportunity for us. Now, immediately when I started to tune into this energy, it reminded me of like a fish that's been living inside of a fish tank. And let's say it's like a tropical fish. Like it's not supposed to live in a fish tank. It's not natural for it to live in a fish tank. It's got that color, it's got that pizzazz to it, but it's living in this tiny little fish tank, and it just wants to go back to the ocean. It's dreams of the ocean. It has this heart felt desire of like, I don't belong here. I belong in the ocean. And it keeps thinking about it and swimming in circles and hitting the corners of the fish tank. And then eventually something just spontaneously happens, and maybe like the fish tank combusts or it breaks, or it just spontaneously that fish just jumps out of the fish tank and it flip-flops around, and somehow it finds its way back into some kind of stream or river or current that takes it back into the ocean. And now it's like on this adventure of going back to where it really needs to be, like going and finding a way out, finding a way into a bigger territory, wild territory, something that's so much more aligned and supportive of that fish. And that's kind of like the energy I feel about the new moon. I feel like it's kind of initiating like a new beginning that's kind of like an adventurous experience, that takes us outside of the box in our own thinking and allows us to embrace some kind of broader horizon in our lives that enlivens us, that enlivens our heart and our passion for life. And, having Mars in Gemini is kind of like a quick energy, like Gemini's kind of a mental, well, it is a mental energy. It's very mental and intellectual, and then having Mars in there is kind of like a really fast kind of mental energy. And then when it's coming into conjunction with Jupiter in Gemini, that's like a pretty big expansion kind of energy. Jupiter is adventurous. It's got a very broad perspective. It's philosophical, it grows, it expands, it provides wisdom. And that's going to be at Gemini. And I'm just noticing it's going to be at like 15 degrees Gemini, which is actually a critical degree. It's actually kind of an intense energy of any sign. When you're at the 15-degree mark, it's kind of got an intensity to it and can almost be agitating in some ways. And then we've got Mars kind of creeping in on this tighter conjunction here. And so what I'm sensing about this is like almost maybe like a frustration that's building for us mentally, like a mental tension that's building, and a quickening around going after what we deeply desire and feeling kind of like boxed in, feeling kind of like restricted on some level, and like knowing that something bigger exists for us, but not really knowing how to get outside our own damn box. Um, and, regardless of our fears, regardless of our beliefs that maybe have previously inhibited us on some level, we actually at some point kind of break free and, head in a new direction, possibly, or just a bigger direction, or just embrace something bigger than us, something that might be a little bit unknown to us, but we trust it anyways. And we kind of get out of the box and we go in that direction. So I truly can sense like a very exciting, fast, kind of quickening energy to this new moon, where kind of like that flame of our heart gets ignited, and it leads us to some kind of long-term growth or expansion, and allows us to move through obstacles. And so since this conjunction with Mars and Jupiter is happening in Gemini, I do see that as us moving through some mental blockages that keep us from, massive, massive growth, massive expansion, and it might be frustrating. Like we might be kind of like stuck in our ways, not really being able to see how to get out of our situation, how to get unstuck, how to break through something that feels restrictive. It might feel agitating, like that moment before the breakthrough. It's kind of like, I just know that there's something beyond this experience and I just need to break through it, And so this is really kind of like going for it, despite your fears and limitations. You're going to go for it, even if it's risky, even if it's kind of like a new adventure, even if it brings you into the unknown. Like that's that courage of the lion heart that comes through in this new moon. Like we need Leo to do that. We need that Leo energy to do that, to bring us through this next phase of how we navigate our purpose in our lives currently. We need some courage so that we can just kind of step outside of some kind of box that's been limiting us and really embrace a new horizon and kind of do that fast, faster. But really, what's holding us back? Probably the attachments that we have mentally, since we've got that kind of Mars and Jupiter and Gemini kind of vibe going on. So then I want to shift into a different energy, which is Venus. What's going on with Venus here? Because this is definitely, I think, a very interesting conversation happening here. Um, Venus is in Leo, at this time, which is, kind of more of a showy, demonstrative, kind of romantic, kind of extravagant way of relating to each other, showing our love, expressing our values. I mean, it can be more dramatic, it can be more romantic, it can be more kind of over the top in some ways. And that's kind of Venus in Leo. But what's interesting about Venus in this position here is it's at the 29th degree, and boy, has that like degree been coming up a lot. We have Neptune at the 29th degree. We just had the last full moon in Capricorn at the 29th degree, and then we're going to have here Venus in this new moon at the 29th degree. And so again, that's a very intense critical degree. Like it is known for karmic or fateful kind of endings or releases of some kind. It's also kind of volatile in a way in that it's unstable because it's kind of like having one foot in an old doorway while you're putting your foot into a new doorway. And so it's kind of like that space between two different energies, that space between realms. That's we're still in the old, but we're like reaching into the new on some level. And so we've got that going on with Venus. But what's most interesting, I guess, most obvious about Venus is that she's in a square with Uranus, and so this is that plot twist energy, this is like breaking free. This is like something sudden, shocking, exciting that frees us or liberates us from the way we relate, from the way we think or express ourselves. This could be revelations that we have, about what we desire. Our hearts could involve our relationships or how we show up in a relationship. Again, we're working that access between the north node and the south node, the north node in Aries, the south node in Libra. And so there's this constant balancing going on at this time about our individual self and our how we show up in relationships, how we bring balance and harmony to relationships. There's a square though, here with Uranus, and that's kind of like the challenge of this new moon. And the challenge is likely having Uranus and Taurus. Taurus is this fixed energy. It can be kind of stubborn and stuck in its ways. So likely that challenge is breaking free from that same thing we keep doing over and over again, expecting different results, but not getting different results. And instead, we kind of open up. It's like a heart, where we open up our hearts. We're courageous. We open up and we receive some kind of like divine intervention. Um, that allows us to really align or follow our heart's desires in some way, or just kind of go for it. It's kind of like something that feels impossible suddenly feels possible. And we just start, something kind of out of the normal happens that allows us to just go for it. And that could be something new. It could be something dramatic. It could just be something that you've been wanting to do for a while. And finally you break free of your own limitations and can actually do that. But it could be a very new and dramatic way of us showing up in the world differently than we ever have before. Now, there is some crunchy stuff going on with that square between Venus and Uranus, because Uranus will be conjunct with Algol. Now, Algol is a star, and it's kind of associated with that story of Medusa. So Medusa was a priestess for Athena. And then, she got into some trouble, and, Athena cursed her, gave her that, Medusa head, of snakes, that would turn people into stone. And then Medusa became targeted, and then they had to, chop off her head. And, so that star Algol is kind of has a lot of those themes around dethroning, beheading, like taking power down from its throne in some way. Sorry to kind of like shift a little bit here, but like what's also happening with Venus is that we have some inconjunctions. We have Venus having an inconjunction with Pluto, and we also have Venus having an inconjunction with Neptune. And that can be kind of like a frustrating blind spot, where we just have like a quick insight and suddenly it's like, we connect the dots, or we get some kind of insight that allows us to be supported in some way. But before that insight happens, it can be almost like a frustrating blind spot. And having an in conjunction with Venus in general shows that there could be some patterns that we're dealing with that limit our self-worth, create dysfunctional, unhealthy relationships, makes it hard to receive. Having an in conjunction with Neptune could mean that we're having issues around escapism and fantasy, and really not seeing the real picture of things. Having it in conjunction with Pluto could give us this challenge with our like with power, and change and uncertainty and things like that. And so just kind of bringing this all into play, like I can sense like these issues, related to relationships, related to the heart, like dysfunction, the low self-esteem, the low self-worth, like these issues that we just haven't really been able to see how we get out of them, how we break free of them. Yet we've got like this, you know, brush up against Uranus, which is like an awakener, it's kind of like this higher mind. It's this, it will awaken, it will shake things up, and it will, help you break free. And so that is Venus receiving the light of Uranus. Now, lately, Uranus has been giving like almost like divine intervention vibes. I mean, we saw Mars conjuncting with Uranus, um, 2 days before that conjunction really closed in. There was an assassination attempt on Trump, and that was actually on Trump's midheaven. Um, and that actually initiated a influx of light, or an influx of consciousness, that on a collective level, so on a massive level, it initiated an expansion of consciousness that came to a shift around the full moon in Capricorn. Okay, which on that day of the full moon, that's when President Biden, passed the torch. He kind of dropped out of the presidential reelection and handed it over to someone else. So that is a huge collective shift. I mean, that is not, both of those things happening within a week was like disrupting a very big pattern. And if you look at our history, like in the US, it's been this awful pattern of like, like, I don't know, like, I'm sure a lot of people might agree, but just feeling like you're stuck on like a, on like a carnival wheel or something. It's like we're going for this crazy ride over and over and over again, and we all want a different experience, but we can't seem to break free of this pattern, this annoying pattern, and get a different experience. And here we go, having some really disruptive, shocking, exciting, unpredictable things happen that allow us to disrupt a very old pattern and opens us up to something new, a new potential, a different way of something panning out. And that's kind of what's happening with Uranus right now. It's kind of like it's allowing us to kind of step outside of the box in some way with our thinking. Um, it's like we expect it to go this way. It's always gone this way, but then we open up, we shine our light, and bam, 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 like something changes outside of what our mind comprehends, and it comes together in a way that's much better than it was before. That's what I mean by divine intervention. Um, and like right now, especially, there is, especially with Jupiter going into Gemini and being in Gemini for like a year, I really saw this as a huge expansion around our minds, where we're bringing a lot more consciousness, in and rebalancing some of the dynamics of our mind. And we have very old patterns of the mind where the mind is trying to do everything. The mind is trying to figure out everything. The mind is fixated on details and trying to connect all the dots and control everything and not allow us to really just open up to something bigger, like our creative power, or like you know, um, divine our divine intervention, our divine intelligence, our enlightened intelligence, our creative power, like that, our intuition, like all of that happens outside of the mind. The mind can't comprehend that. And so it's almost like watching the collective go through a roller coaster ride with the mind where they think something is going to go one way and they keep kind of following this storyline in their minds about what's possible. And then that pattern gets disrupted that allows them to kind of open up to a new state of consciousness, like having shifts in consciousness over the next year on a collective level, that allows the mind to realize like there's something bigger at play that's outside of my control, and I should probably just trust it and allow it and get used to it, and respect it, and not try to figure everything out myself, and just be open to receiving, open to receiving. And that's kind of what Venus is doing around this new moon. I mean, a lot of those in conjunctions with Venus, between Neptune and Pluto, is kind of like that annoying feeling of like having that difficulty in receiving. And like, what do we need to receive? Well, we need to receive the enlightened mind, the higher mind, the divine intervention, our enlightened intelligence that comes in outside of our mind and kind of whips around different potentials so we can experience something new, so that we can go into some new, bigger, brighter territory. All right. So, generally speaking, with feminine energy, we've got a few things going on. Like the first thing that I'm noticing here is Ceres in Capricorn. Ceres is like a nurturing energy, and that's in Capricorn. So we are like nurturing, our ambitions. We're nurturing our success. We're nurturing how we come into success, how we build structure, how we create the structure that we need so that we can rise and ascend into a higher level, of some kind. And, that's currently squaring the North and the South node in Aries and in Libra, which is kind of showing us this challenge that we're going through around our ambitions, where we're needing to kind of counterbalance our personal needs with our relationship needs, and the clarity that we're getting. It's almost like there's a lot of clarity that's coming in, and we're really purifying, who we are and who we are as individuals. And we're like really purifying that and getting that very clear. And that's directly impacting the way we show up in relationships and just our ability to nourish our ambitions at the same time as all of that change is happening. That's the challenge. That's the square. That's the growth period of Ceres. at this time. Something also interesting that I'm noticing here is Persephone is in Sagittarius and it's opposing Mars, and it's also in a trine with the North Node. And there's also a sextile here with the South Node coming from Persephone. Um, and so there's a natural flow in the direction of kind of where we need to go as individuals. And we have the opportunity to support our, relationships with this. But the challenge with this is kind of the balance between where we might be kind of digging up these old ways of dealing with conflict. And the way we have to take down the energy that is cornering us, threatening us, and restricting us, and imposing its will on us. You have like a gladiator, about to do battle, and then you have like the big monster that comes out, and it's kind of like, man, there's some really old ways uh, that we've had to deal with conflict that feels very dominating and maybe unfair, where it's kind of like impossible, and like having to either sacrifice ourselves in the process or give up or like just be really defeated in some way, and that's kind of Persephone, what I'm seeing around Persephone and her freedom. Like it's about freedom. She's in Sagittarius. For her, she's digging up all those old, hidden, kind of wounded feminine stuff around our truth and our freedom. And what is our truth? And how do we have freedom in conflict, in our obstacles, when we have this kind of mental energy that acts as this dominating energy that really inhibits us from really seeing something in a bigger way, right? Seeing the full picture, getting the bird's eye view, getting the broad perspective, where our mind like really needs to, in some ways, um, we need to get some space with it. We need to kind of take down some of those mental structures, so that we can, experience healthy dynamics in our feminine energy. So this reminds me of like the gladiator fighting the monster, but instead of like accepting defeat or getting really beat up in the process of trying to, win the battle, it's more like, something out of nowhere comes in and defeats it for us. It takes it down for us. And all of a sudden we don't even have to fight. We don't even have a conflict anymore because something outside of the box happened that did it for us. And all we had to do was open up and receive, you know? So that's kind of what I sense about what's happening with feminine energy. We're just opening up, allowing our intuitive, enlightened intelligence to do some of this, to handle some of this stuff for us, that we can't even comprehend, but just going for the ride, going for the adventure, the twists and turns here, so that we can come out better on the other side. So another thing going on here is we have some trines going on with Sedna. Clearly, there's some transformation going on. We've got this Pluto energy, we've got this Lilith energy, and that's definitely again that theme of going into what's hidden inside of us in both our masculine and our feminine energy and digging out, old attachments that we have, maybe mental attachments, since Sedna is going to be in Gemini. So digging out some old, hidden, subconscious kind of mental attachments and letting them go for the sake of transformation. Now, this is an energy that just flows in there from Pluto and Lilith. And then I'm also seeing where we've got Juno, looks like trining Sedna as well as Pluto. That's interesting. Now, this is supporting our long-term relationships, the long-term relationship that we all have with our masculine and feminine energy. I mean, what can I say? We have masculine and feminine energy, and we all have a very long-term relationship with ourselves and those two polarized sides of ourselves and how they relate and how they come into union. And so this is definitely going to be a new moon that allows us to release our attachment to any type of mental structures that need to dissolve, that allow us to transform and come into our power. And again, having Venus at that 29th degree is kind of like having a karmic or fated type of ending, to an old story related to the feminine, related to our hearts, where we may have felt restricted, where the feminine side of us has felt restricted in some way, maybe like suppressed in some way, surviving in conditions that deteriorate our self-worth, that neglect our feminine needs, and finally starting to find a way out. So it's a little bit like if you got stuck in a cave for a long time with a dragon and you were just, restricted to this, really rough and scary situation where like you're just surviving and you're not thriving at all. And then you see the light and you see a way out of the tunnel and you're finally able to make out of the cave, you're finally finding your way out of that cave. This is kind of what I see happening with feminine energy. Feminine energy has been stuck between a rock and a hard place for a long time, where it's been kind of where our minds have dominated our intuition, where, I'm talking about masculine energy within all of us, and so oftentimes that can show up as our minds, where our minds have dominated everything. It's dominated us spiritually, it's dominated us physically, it's dominated us emotionally, it's dominated our intuition. It's restricted us. It's kept us living inside this box and not really open to the power and the magic of our feminine energy and what we can really create, right? And so this is like a breakthrough of the mind, a breakthrough that allows feminine energy to also kind of rise into, her power and within us. And that means our creative power, all of us having our creative power, our ability to allow like unexpected, unpredictable things to happen in a very mysterious, synchronistic way that allows us to come into what we're really here to experience, what we're really here to do, what we're really here to be, and that's what's happening, with feminine energy. There's a full-on liberation going on with feminine energy. And Uranus is definitely bringing in that kind of divine intervention type of vibe um, for us. It's that feeling of, it's that feeling of like, I know it's always been like this, and you don't really see a way out, and you don't really understand how it's possible to get out of this. But I promise you, if you just trust and stay open and allow, you know, and have the courage to show up and stay open, like we're going to, we're going to jump, hop, skip realities, we're going to jump, hop, skip timelines. We're going to step into some new potentials, some unexpected new potentials that might not make sense at all to your mind, but will allow you to get there faster, a lot faster than the old ways. Okay, the last thing I do want to mention is Mercury retrograde. Mercury will be going retrograde the day of the new moon. And so I was kind of tracking some of the things that are happening with Mercury over the month of August. And, Mercury will go retrograde. It's going to be in Virgo when it goes retrograde. And then it's going to, at some point conjunct here with Venus. Okay. And at some point, it's going to square Uranus. It's going to trine Chiron. It's going to make a sextile to Mars, and then it's going to go direct on August 28th. And I'm sure there might be some more things that happen with Mercury, but I was just kind of pinpointing some things that popped out at me. Generally speaking, there is when Mercury goes retrograde, that is the planet where it's kind of like the messenger of the gods, our ability to translate that spiritual information into mental information, that ability of our minds and learning and communication and our self-expression. Like, that's Mercury, in a nutshell. And when it goes retrograde, we're reworking, our communication, we're reworking travel, um, all of that can, technology, like all of that can get a little bit disrupted during Mercury retrograde. Um, but yeah, it's a time of reworking, redoing, replanning, going back to the drawing board and making some edits and changing some things, stuff like that. So that's the general theme of Mercury retrograde. When I was tuning into the energy of Mercury retrograde, I see us reworking that relationship between our masculine and our feminine. So what does that mean? I see that, we're starting to recognize like, hey, our mind doesn't understand everything. It can't. It's not aware of everything. It can't understand everything. It can't predict everything. It's trying to figure everything out. It's trying to control everything. But maybe we should give some credit to our feminine energy, that part of us that's intuitive, that part, our powerful creative energy, that divine intelligence, like maybe we should, I don't know, like rework that dynamic between our minds and like something bigger that our minds can't comprehend, our creative intelligence, the dynamic between our minds and the way it interacts with our intuition or the way it interacts with our creative divine intelligence. We're going to be reworking that as a collective. There could be some of those things happening in August where we're a little bit like, wait, what just happened? Like, huh? Like, those, it's kind of like a record scratch, in the middle of a party. Like the music is going and everyone's like dancing and they're in the groove and they're like, yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, the music stops and everyone's like, what is going on? What just happened? And so it's kind of like a mind fuck, like there's a lot of that, I think, going on. And that is there for a reason. It's there to disrupt our mental patterns and kind of awaken us to, how things really unfold, which is consciousness and energy and, how there's not just one linear future. Like there are tons of different potentials. And if we just stay open and shine and be bright, we can illuminate better potentials. We can illuminate brighter potentials. We can step into alternate realities, different timelines, and have a completely different experience from what our mind thinks is going to happen. Right. And I've already kind of said that, but that's Mercury retrograde in a nutshell, and we're breaking through those upper limits. We're allowing new levels of consciousness to come in, that directly has an influence on our minds. So we might be experiencing mental changes, changes in our perception. We might, for those of you that are aware of the chakras, this would be like a crown chakra opening or crown chakra cleansing or crown chakra purifying process. It has to do with our knowingness, our intuition, the universal mind, the higher mind, the divine intelligence. Like I don't know how many ways I can say it so that you might understand what I'm talking about. But, this is about allowing that to come through. And so it is a big healing, and we are reworking a lot of opportunities of how we move forward based on that healing and based on those new adjustments and changes in the mental body of the collective and us personally. So very exciting, very exciting. Could be disruptive, could be chaotic, but it's probably it's Leo season. Could be dramatic, could be entertaining. Um, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a big favor and like this video and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out a lot. And if you have any interest in working with me, you can find more information in the description box below. And I wish you a very profound, beautiful new moon where you feel courageous enough to open your heart, let it shine, and allow some interesting pivots in direction to take place in your life. Okay, take care. Bye.